So today we will be looking at Unit 2 of Sociology Paper 1. Sociology Paper 1, and under it we will be looking at Unit 2, and under Unit 2 we will be looking at Part B. Part A under Unit 2 consists of science, scientific method and its critique, and Part B consists of the major theoretical strands. Major theoretical strands of research methodology. Okay, so this under paper 1 we will be looking at Unit 2, and under Unit 2 the B part, that is major theoretical strands of research methodology. Now we under this basically all the theories and all will be coming up. So what kind of theories are we talking about? It will be, for example, functionalism. Okay, now a sort of dialectic or opposite to functionalism would be the conflict theory. Now whenever you think of conflict theory, you should think of Karl Marx and Marxism. So under conflict theory you would have Marxism plus neo-conflict theory. You know, under conflict theory also there can be different kinds of conflict theories. So we will look at Marxism as well as neo-conflict theory. Then we would also look at positivism. Now, apart from positivism, again, like for functionalism, there was a dialectic or the opposite, which is the conflict theory. Same for positivism will happen when we look at positivism. After that, we will look at phenomenology, which is sort of opposite to what positivism says. Alright, and various other small theories here and there, we will look at that as well. But these are the major theories that we will look at, starting right from functionalism, going on to conflict theory, positivism, so on and so forth. So let's start with functionalism first. Okay, with functionalism. So if very generally, if I have to explain to a layman about functionalism, forget all the sociological wordings and all, of course you have to write it in the answer, but for the understanding, if to a layman I have to explain the concept of functionalism, please understand that when you talk about functionalism, just think to yourself, no matter what you are talking about, be it anything, even crime for example. So the functionalist theory will look at crime also in a positive light. Okay. So what will functionalism do? It will look at crime in a positive light. If there is a caste system also, that will also be looked at in a positive light. So anything that is happening in the society, the constituent elements of the society, the let's say the structure, the infrastructure of the society, religion, education, crime, anything you talk about, functionalists, that is the people who are the proponents of functionalism, they are functionalists. So functionalists or the functionalist theory or functionalism will look at each and everything in a positive manner. Positive manner as in, by positive what do I mean? They will look at what its function is. What its function is. For example, to give you an example here, I said that even for crime, they would talk positively. Because, why positively? Because they will say that there is some positive function of crime which exists. Now you may think, how it is possible that the function, there is a function of crime? Yes, there actually is a function of crime if you look at it. What is the function? When a crime happens, there is a punishment that follows. When the punishment follows, it deters others to do more crime or to do crime. So what is happening? There is a functionalist aspect to the crime also. There is a functionalist aspect with respect to the punishment also. right? In the same manner, functionalist aspect of anything and everything. Some of, let's say, Marxism said, religion is the opium of the masses. So Marx talked about religion in a very negative way. But what about functionalist theory? Functionalist theory will again talk about religion in a positive way, because it will be saying that there are certain functions which religion actually does, which helps, and they are positive. So no matter what the topic is, functionalists and functionalism are going to talk positive about it. Positive is not the right word over here. The right word over here is the function. They would talk about its function, that means its utility. Now utility for what? Utility for keeping the entire society running, for keeping the system in place, system of the society in place, for keeping the institutions of the society in place, for keeping people in a stable certain state of maintenance, so that there is no conflict, so that there is no, let's say, friction among the people in the society. For a society to function smoothly, each and everything would have some function or the other, or some utility or the other. So that is the layman understanding of functionalism. Let's now go down to the technicality of it. So functionalism, I said they would look at the function of anything in order to maintain the society's system in a proper order. That means what? That means functionalism views society as a system. It views society as a system. Functionalism views society as a system. What is a system? Let's say your body. Our body itself is a system in itself. A bicycle, a motorcycle, it's a system. System made up of what? So if we talk about a motorcycle, motorcycle is a system made up of what? There are wheels, there is a handle. In case of car, it will be a steering. There is an engine. This wheel itself consists of what? It consists of tube, it consists of tire, it consists of drum or disc brakes which are there in the tire, and it consists of spokes, it consists of so many things. The handle consists of the grip, the steel rods, engine consists of various levers, additional things in it. So all these things together constitute what? Constitute a system, and that system is the motorcycle. I hope that's clear. So what are these things? These things are nothing but they are interconnected. Of course they are interconnected. Can you have two wheels here, one handle there, another engine there, tube here, tire there, and then call it as a bike? No, you cannot call it as a bike, right? These things need to be interconnected with each other. You cannot in isolation call them as a complete bike. You need to have them interconnected. When these interconnected parts are there, when the parts are interconnected, it leads to a whole, and that whole is nothing but the system, right? And that is how the society is also. So as per functionalism, society is equals to system, right? System meaning interconnected parts creating a whole, right? Now what are these interconnected parts? These interconnected parts are, of course, human beings, but not just human beings, but different institutions of society. Now these institutions can be tangible institutions and intangible institutions. So if I talk about tangible institutions, tangible as in something which can be touched, which can be felt, which can be seen because it's physically present, right? So the school, the colleges, the hospitals, they are a part. Even the prison is also a part of the society. So here you have schools, colleges, hospitals, prisons also. I'm specifically giving this example because even prisons, of course, positive functionalist aspect of prisons, okay. Intangible, if you look at, you have religion, you have knowledge, right? So all these things are intangible. So these are nothing, even certain other systems within the system of society, that is, for example, caste system. Can you touch the caste? You cannot touch the caste. It is intangible, but it is a part of the system. Now all these things are constituent elements, right? But in a society, are they not interconnected? And once they all are interconnected, they form the society. So society, as per functionalists, is a system that is interconnected parts creating a whole. So this is what your society is. So why society? Why we are worried of society? Worried about society? Because we are studying sociology, and sociology is what? It is the study of society. Meaning, in sociology, society is what? A unit of analysis. Society is the unit of analysis. For example, if I talk about psychology, in psychology, a single human being or a single human being's brain, a single individual's mind would be the unit of analysis of psychology, right? But that will not consist of sociology because it's a single individual. Society is formed with many individuals, right? So in sociology, the unit of analysis would be your society. And society is viewed as what? As a system which is nothing but a whole constituting of an interconnected part. Now, for this society to function properly, what is required for the society to function properly? There might be certain rules, regulations, certain equilibrium, right? All these things may be required, right? Now, there can be certain institutions that is required, certain tangible things, certain intangible things that are required, right? So all these things that are required for the society to function properly are known as, remember this word, prerequisites. These are prerequisites. These words are important because in your sociological answer of sociology in your optional, these terms have to be there. These are technical terms which will make your answer sociological. Okay, so the basic need that is required, the basic requirement of a society to function properly can be a lot of many things. We saw this. So all these things which is required for the society to function properly are known as the prerequisites. So two things we have learned so far, that functionalists view society as a system, and this system or society will need certain things to function properly. Those things are prerequisites. Now, if you compare this with a sociologist, so a functionalist is a sociologist only who has functionalist perspective. So this functionalist perspective is working in the same manner as positive science. What is positive science? Natural science. Biology, for example, is a positive science. We'll see positivism, then we'll understand what is a positive science. So this derives its, let's say, inspiration from biology or the sociologists, functional sociologists derive their inspiration, let's say for example from biologists. Why are we deriving? In sociology you will come across a lot of places wherein we are deriving certain thought processes from certain other sciences and other fields. Why is that the case? That is the case because sociology is a very recent science. It's a very recent science. If I have to give you a number over here, it is just 600-700 years old only. What about mathematics? What about physics? In astronomy, in fact, physics and all are thousands of years old and are most developed. Why most developed? Because they were there thousands of years old. There thousands of years ago themselves. There can be other reasons also, because they are probably objective science. We'll study that as well. But if you talk about physics, if you talk about mathematics, even if you talk about biology, I did not say this before because these are even way before. So they are old science, very old in fact. And since they are very old, they are developed. Whereas sociology is a very recent science. Talk about 1400, 1450, 1500. That's when sociology, that's where actually, a lot of revolution were happening, renaissance were happening. And then came the industrial revolution, wherein people started thinking about the society and the hardships and the works. The majority of the works with respect to Western sociology has come during and after the industrial revolution. Just think about it. Meaning after 70-50, right? So not even 300 years old. So majority of the works have come during or after the industrial revolution. Even the six thinkers which are specifically mentioned in your paper 1 are during or after this period only, right? So note this point. So hence sociology is a very recent science. Recent science as in it is in a very nascent or embryonic stage. Embryonic stage, the embryo of a living being, when it is completely not formed yet. So it is not completely formed yet. It's a very recent science. That is why you will come across times wherein sociology borrows certain concepts from certain different fields and certain different types of sciences. Okay, so here functionalism is also borrowing from, let's say, biology, right? So in the same manner, like for example, if we take an example over here, if we talk about a biologist would want to study a human body, which is considered to be a system. To study the human body, which is considered to be a system, the biologist would be required to study what? Required to study the heart, the brain, the liver, etc. Now, what are heart, brain, liver, all these things? These are the interconnected parts. Now, these interconnected parts make what? Make the system. I hope that's clear. So how is a biologist studying a human body? To study the human body. Now why the biologist has to study the human body? In order to understand how does human body survive? How does it maintains its temperature, it survives, it keeps on living, so on and so forth. So to understand how is human body surviving, it has to study or to understand how does human body survive, it has to study heart, brain, liver, etc., which are interconnected parts which constitute together to form the system, right? Now, there is one catch over here. What is the catch over here? The catch is that if the biologist studies only heart In this scenario, will the biologist be able to understand how the body is surviving? No. If the biologist studies only the brain, will the biologist be able to understand why the entire body is surviving? No. If the biologist studies only liver, for example, only skin, only bones, only eyes, only hands, only fingers, only nails, the biologist will not be able to understand how the entire body is surviving. Okay. If this is studied in isolation, biologists will not be able to study or understand how the human body is surviving. Correct? So to understand how the human body is surviving, what the biologist needs to do? The biologist needs to study heart, mind, that is brain, kidney, liver, whatever you can think of, etc., together in context with each other. Okay, all these things need to be studied together in context with each other. And that is very true with respect to a lot of things. For example, if you take out one excerpt from any religious book, a single line, it may mean something to you and it may feel not correct, incorrect, or right. But if you read the entire passage, then you will start getting the context. If you read the entire verse, the entire chapter, and finally the entire religious scripture, it's only then can you understand why that is written and why that is probably correct also. Now, not to say that every sentence would require the entire context to be read, of course not, but there would be definitely certain things which would require you to read the entire verse or passage or page or chapter or the entire religious scripture or book. Okay, so that is the same case here. Because if you are reading, studying just the heart, it's pumping blood, so what is happening, where this blood is coming from, where is it going from, you're not understanding everything. Then you need to study this and other things together and in context as well in order to understand how the body is surviving. In the same manner, the functionalists also say that the different constituents interconnected part of the society also needs to be understood or studied together. The interconnected parts which form the entire society to be studied together and in context. Okay. For example, if you look at, functionalist aspect of the caste system we will be talking about in paper 2. We won't touch it much here, but to understand, explain, I will tell you, or anyhow in your answers, you can use cross references. In fact, now the questions are being asked, which is, for example, you are being asked implementation of theory of paper 1 in paper 2 or in the Indian context. So, not a problem. So, for example, if you are talking about the caste system, so if you look at caste in isolation, the functionalists will say that if you are looking at caste in isolation and saying it is discriminatory, it is this, it is that, you are wrong. They say that you are wrong. You have to look at the caste system in the entire context of the society. Look at the context, why it came into existence, why was it required, what functionalist aspect does it have. So they are asking any interconnected part which constitute the system should be studied together and in proper context. So that is basically the thought process or the concept of functionalism. And also that what I mentioned was that they would look at everything in a positive way. Positive is not the right word. What I said is in a functionalist way, that everything is having some function or the other. Some function or the other. Now, why is this function equivalent to positive thing? Because they are studying the function. They are talking about the function which helps to maintain the existence of the system. So if these are the things which are helping to maintain the existence of a system, then these functions have to be positive only. Right? You cannot be talking about negative functions which are going to destroy. No, the functionalists would argue that even they help in order to maintain the system. And since these functions are maintaining the system, that is the positive element which they have. Alright, so this is what the functionalists actually talk about. One thing to remember here is this maintenance, functionalists say that this maintenance of society can only be possible if there are certain shared values among the people. Okay, so there needs to be the existence of the shared value among the people. Since there is a shared value among the people, then only the maintenance is possible. For example, that we should not do crime, it is not good, it is bad, or we will be punished. So that kind of shared value needs to exist in the society. When that exists, only then the society will function. If half of the people are saying no, you should do crime, half of them are saying you should not do crime, so these half and half would be divided, and half of the population is committing crimes, there would be chaos, and the maintenance of society will not be possible. Hence, the functionalists say that there needs to be shared value among the people in order for the system to be maintained or run smoothly. Okay, so this is what your functionalism is all about. Now, a completely dialectic means opposing view is given by the conflict theory. By the conflict theory, and under this we will be looking at Marxism. By Marxism, that is a conflict theory. So what is the opposing view here? So let's start with where we ended in functionalism. Where did we end in functionalism? We ended by saying that there needs to be shared values. Now Marxism says completely opposite. It says, and here shared value is required to maintain or run the society. Marxism says that there would be opposing or antagonistic tendencies. There would be opposing and antagonistic tendencies between the people. And not just that, these antagonistic tendencies will not be 10, 15, 20, 100 different tendencies. No. He said there will be majorly two opposing values. In functionalism, there was shared value. In Marxism, there is two opposing values. Because of that, Marx also divided the entire society. So Marx divided the entire society into division of society into two classes. What are these two classes? The haves and the have-nots. Haves are the ownership class, meaning they own the forces or modes of production. Have-nots are the non-owners or the non-ownership class. Now, the haves are known as the bourgeois and the non-owners are known as the proletariat. Now, Marx says that throughout the history of human beings, the society would be divided into two classes throughout the history of humankind. The primitive society didn't have, but then when you start with feudalism in Karl Marx's historical materialism, will be tracing that complete journey of conflicting division of society into two classes and how it kept on changing. But to understand conflict theory, Marx says that throughout the history, the entire society has been divided into two different classes. And this division has taken place not based on different things. It's not based on race, it's not based on religion, it is not based on gender or sex, male, female, etc., nothing like that. It is simply based on the ownership and non-ownership. One of them would be the owner, one of them would not be the owner. So ownership of what? Ownership of forces of production. Non-ownership of what? Non-ownership of forces of production. So this bourgeois, they own the forces of production. Proletariat, they do not own the forces of production. So Marx says the entire society will be divided into these two classes. And when the society is divided into these two classes, what will happen? Conflict will happen. Conflict. This conflict, Marx says, is nothing but the class struggle. This is another topic which you will be reading under Karl Marx, class struggle. And the class struggle will be between just two classes. So, since the society is divided into two classes, the owners, non-owners, have-nots, that is bourgeois and the proletariat, that would lead to friction, that would lead to conflict, and conflict is nothing but class struggle. Okay. And how would that conflict be? It's a very unequal conflict. See, is it like both the teams have equal power, equal economic capability? Right? No, it's not. And remember, when we are talking about this is based on the ownership or non-ownership of forces of production are what factors? They are economic factors. So basically it's the economic factor which is deciding the division of the classes in society into two classes, and that is why conflict theory of Marx, that is Marxism, is also known as economic deterministic theory or economic determinism. Why economic determinism? Because it is the economic factor which is determining or dividing the entire society into two classes, which is then leading to conflict, which is nothing but, in words of Karl Marx, the class struggle that is happening. Now, when this conflict happens, this is not between two equals, this is between two unequal classes. The haves versus the have-nots. So when it is the haves versus the have-nots, what will happen? When there is a conflict, it is at times it can so happen that it is very equal. Each one is let's say exploiting the other, but that necessarily will not happen, and at least in Karl Marx's theory it will not happen like that. Here what will happen is one class will dominate and exploit the other class. Now, one are haves, one are have-nots. So, who will exploit whom? These haves will exploit the have-nots. These have-nots will be exploited by the haves. I hope this is absolutely clear. Right? So if this keeps on happening, then what will happen? So during the major period throughout the history, in majority of the time, for majority of the number of years, this is what will happen. The haves will keep on exploiting the have-nots. And if this happens, this keeps on happening. Even now in capitalism, Marxism would say that the capitalists are exploiting the laborers, right? That is what the case is. But Marx then says that when this exploitation by the haves is happening against the have-nots, what will happen is this will keep building up, this will keep building up, and there will be a point which will come due to various reasons that the factors of production can change. For example, earlier agriculture was there, which was the main source of income throughout the world. Agricultural produce, industrialization was not there. So at that time it was the landlord and the serfs, the landlord and the agricultural laborers. So these two kept on fighting. Exploitation happened of the serfs by the landlord, but then suddenly the forces of production themselves changed. Now industrialization happened. So now those who are owning capital and industries are the one in power. So in the same manner, so how did that happen? Exploitation was happening, but suddenly the forces of production change. So when that change happens, then at that time, whoever can take the advantage and own the new forces of production will become the new owner and will become the new exploiter, right? So what is happening as per Karl Marx? As per Karl Marx, the society is progressing due to the conflict or the class struggle. Clear? It is progressing due to the conflict or the conflict, that is due to the class struggle. Okay, now this, guys, is completely opposite to functionalism. This is Marxism, right? Now if you remember functionalism, in functionalism what did we say? System, that is the society, is running smoothly, is running due to shared values. Shared values and conflict, two completely different point of views. Okay, so this is the conflict theory, Marxism. Now the neo-conflict theory is similar. It is opposite to functionalism only. It is related to Marxism only, similar to Marxism, but there is a simple but very important change. What is that change? In Marxism, conflict is happening due to what? Due to economic factor, the economic ownership and non-ownership of the forces of production. But as per the neo-conflict theory, also, the society would progress due to the presence of the conflict, right? Society progresses due to presence of conflict, right? And this is exactly what Marxism also said. Society. So I want to tell you where do they differ? Society progresses due to the presence of conflict. So this point is same. This point for each one of them, both of them is same, but at the same time it is different as compared to functionalism. So then where are they differing? They are differing when it comes to the reason for conflict. So what is the reason? The reason of conflict is, here is economic factor, that is ownership versus non-ownership. Meaning owners versus non-owners. And we are talking about ownership of what? Ownership of forces of production. So it is economic factor. Neo-conflict theorists say, boss, this is not economic factor, but this is a power struggle. Now please understand the small difference. See, this is also power struggle. This is also power struggle. But this power struggle is solely based on the economic factor. Anything with respect to Marx boils down to the economic factor. Even if you study gender inequality, Karl Marx will say, or Marxism philosophy will say, that gender inequality is stemming from the inequality in the ownership of the forces of production. And to an extent that is right. That means what? That since females are less owners, they don't own much. As far as ownership is concerned, they own very less. And the males are the ones who are owning majority of the forces of production, as a result of which it is the males, these are the males that are dominating the society. So gender inequality is also stemming from the non-ownership. However, there is a criticism to this. The criticism to this is what? In certain villages or any places you will see that the owners might be the females, but still the decision of that property, of that agricultural land, what to grow, how to grow, what to do, what not to do with that particular thing is still decided by the males. In fact, there have been reports which also suggest that there is an entire web series actually. If you look at this web series Panchayat, in this web series, the Pradhan of the village is a female. But she stays at home, does nothing, never goes to the office, never meets the people, does not take any decision, doesn't do anything. But it's her husband, who is a male, takes all the decision, does all the things, and people start calling him only as Pradhan. Okay, they call him only as Pradhan, the village head basically, and not his wife. Okay, so it's the similar thing. She is owning the title, but he is the one doing the things and taking decisions and being respected, being saluted by the people of the village. In the same manner, there have been reports in certain areas of Haryana, for example, that agricultural land, a lot of agricultural land owned by females, but even after that, no improvement in the inequality factor. So what is this? This is going completely counter to the Marxist perspective. Now this may be because the patriarchy is so ingrained or so normalized, so deep running into the bloods of the humans, that even after certain things are changing, still patriarchy is ruling. Okay. So having said that, so here what was the reason? The reason was economic factor. Here the reason is the power struggle, and the power struggle is not limited to the economic factor. It can be any different kind of power struggle. It can be due to, let's say, for example, political power, for example, physical power. So dominance, basically power struggle as in one side dominating the other, It need not necessarily be due to the economic factor. That is what neo-conflict theory says. So basically expanding or liberalizing the reasoning of Marxism is what neo-conflict theory is doing.